Okay, let's give this another go. Couple false starts because of coughing fits. So I think that's appropriate because today we're doing a supplementary lecture on health. And I have a sore throat. Uh, I keep coughing. So like that, if I keep clearing my throat, I apologize. Normally I don't interrupt my lectures like that, but we're running out of time. That's why I'm doing this lecture. We have a lot of presentations to do. So it would be better if I could talk about introduce these topics on these videos so that in class I can give you a little bit of time to do discussion. So excuse my throat clearing and coughing while I work my way through the first topic, which is in the textbook on page 78. It's called How to Stay Healthy. So obviously, I'm going to allow you, as I have in all the other questions, just to take the topic in whatever direction you want, as long as it still, stays on topic, stays related to health. You need to take a sort of perspective, as I love to use that word. If you want to take a personal one, and you want to explain how you stay healthy, or if you want to explain how you are not healthy and what you think you should do or what you think you should change, right? The flip side of being healthy, of course, is being unhealthy. Hopefully you don't have anything serious, but all of us are not perfectly healthy. It's a combination of our biology, our environment, the choices we make, our lifestyle, what kind of medicine we take or what kind of medicine we use. And the lifestyle includes all these behaviors. So if you think if you want to talk for a few minutes about the best way to stay healthy in your opinion or in your case, or you want to make a suggestion, you want to frame the question as kind of like some advice, giving advice to other people because you think you do have a healthy routine. I didn't write that actually. You might add that into lifestyle. A lot of people, routines, some people have very strict routines and some people don't. And most of the evidence points towards a routine being a positive thing, that if you go to bed or you do your homework and you eat with regularity, that would have a positive effect on your health in the long term. Especially if you have problems. A lot of people have problems sleeping these days. I think this is mostly related to stress. I've never been very good at falling asleep. I'm not sure technically if you would call me an insomniac. If you have insomnia, it means you can't sleep. But occasionally, it'll take me hours to get to sleep. And some nights I only get, 3 or 4 hours of sleep. For most people, that's not enough. Generally, if I'm not exhausted, that won't really ruin my mood or make me feel sick. But some people sort of wither if they don't get enough sleep. My sister is one of those people. She prefers to get at least 8 hours of sleep a night, and if she doesn't, she's a different type of person. Maybe you can relate to that. Now, going back to the original thing, there's a lot of debate about what's more important, genetics or your environment, what happens to you. I think when I was growing up, it was a very heated debate, but I don't think there needs to be a debate about this. I think we all know. Science has shown us over the last 150 years that genetics are important. It at least sets a blueprint for what you're going to look like. So you may eat healthy things and drink milk and take ginseng and eat kimchi and eggs and all the things that you believe are going to make you have strong bones and be the tallest person in the world. But you're not. You're like me. You're shorter than your dad. I'm 177 centimeters. My father's 183. My uncle's 185. My cousins are over 180. And me and my brother are 177. I don't think my parents gave us less food or we exercised too much or we had some sort of disadvantage. Just we have different genetics. So I'm not sure if I could have been taller. There might have been a few small things, but basically I was destined to be, there was a range of height I could have been, and my genetics determined that. So we like to use the word predisposition. Sorry. So you're predisposed, which means there's a higher likelihood and there's a range of possibilities, and your genetics set that that range for you, and then your environment determines if you're at the low end or the high end or the middle. There's a lot of factors in your environment: pollution, disease, diet, stress, relationships, family, nourishment, routine, schedules, how much exercise you do. All these things can play into this. So now you are all adults, and I'm assuming most of you have stopped growing, so you're not concerned about getting taller. You might be concerned about gaining weight, or maybe building muscle, getting stronger, or faster, right? Or you might be more concerned about what you look like. You might just want to have healthier skin or something like that. All of these things are fine, but I think medicine is not the solution to everything. Sometimes, especially in Western countries, and Koreans are getting like this too, whenever you have some small issue, the first thing you do is go to the doctor and you ask the doctor, what's wrong with me? And they give you a bunch of pills for like 3 days and that you expect the problem to go away. A lot of things are not like that. And you should go to the doctor if you think there's something strange or odd, that's, you know your body. You have to listen to your body, as we say in English. So you have to make a decision whether this is just, I'm overtired, I'm stressed, or I have a serious reaction, or I need to get this checked out. Some of the most dangerous diseases, for example, cancer, one of the things that you need to do is sort of regularly check, even if you don't feel bad, even if you don't feel any symptoms. All of you are young, so I know you're not going to do it, but as you get older, towards my age, the best thing you can do for yourself is to have regular checkups for, the major organs in your body. Get a blood test and check your stomach and your heart and your liver and your kidney. Every year or 2 years, get a real, what they call physical examination, the scope down your throat, and checking your intestines and checking for cancer, and checking your blood sugar and liver function. All these things. I do it every year. It's very uncomfortable, I have to say, and I'm sure I didn't do it until I was 35. So you still have 15 years of relative comfort or confidence in the condition of your body. But as you get older, you have to check for these things. The earlier that you find out that you have some sort of sickness, the easier it is to treat, whatever that treatment is: surgery, medicine, therapy, chemotherapy, or radiation in the case of cancer. That's very important. But on a daily basis, so you can talk about that. You can talk about a particular disease or a particular injury. In my case, I ruptured my Achilles tendon. So I could use that. I could answer this question as an anecdote, right? So I'll just go into an anecdote. We've got all this vocabulary here. We'll deal with it as we go. But I'll give you this personal anecdote. It's because it's it's not a super exciting story, but this could happen to anyone. And, it serves, I guess, as maybe a warning to you that as you start to age, remember, take care of yourself. A lot of students send me an email and say, take care of your health or stay healthy. There's a lot of people getting sick, or the flu or the coronavirus, especially recently, the last 2 years. It's a nice way to end an email. So take care of your health. I appreciate that. I don't take care of my health, but thank you for saying that. When I first came to Chungnam, my very first year, my second semester, I was pretty excited to work here, and I was pretty excited to be finished. So on the last day of exams, the last week when exams were going on, I wasn't nearly as busy. I was single as well, so I didn't have any responsibilities outside my job. So I was playing soccer. I just started in the spring playing soccer. I hadn't played in 5 or 6 years or something. I just started playing soccer, and I was in fairly, I wasn't heavy, I wasn't overweight, but I wasn't in good shape, right? I wasn't ready to play soccer at a higher level, but I played anyway, and I was having so much fun. I kept playing as much as possible. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Friday it was the exam, and after the exam, a couple of my friends came over, and we were just kicking around. It wasn't a game. We were just kicking the ball around, and then I reached out to touch the ball. We were just playing like kind of what you guys do, like juku, and I reached out as far as I could, and I hadn't stretched properly with my right foot, and my left foot like exploded. Like it sounded like a gun. Literally, it sounds like a gun or a tire exploding. It sounded like somebody had been shot. I felt like a car had run over my leg, or my leg had been broken with a baseball bat. And I looked behind me, because if you look this up, this is what happens. When you rupture your Achilles, it feels like somebody broke your leg, but you look behind you and there's nobody there. Just inside my leg, it exploded. So I was in an extreme amount of pain, so I sat down, but an hour later, I didn't feel that bad. I guess chemicals released in my body or whatever. So I was sitting down and hanging out with my friends. And I even had a few drinks with them. It was Friday night. They went home. Next day, I taught a class, but I couldn't move my leg at all. Like from my knee down, my foot was like flopping around. And it was really swollen, and blood started coming, bruise started forming. So I was like, this isn't good. I taught the class on Saturday morning. Then I went to the doctor, and the doctor took a look at it, and he was like, oh, this is really bad. And I was like, well, how bad? And he said, you have to go to surgery this week. So 3 days later, I had surgery to reattach my Achilles tendon, and I had a cast on for 10 weeks. I couldn't walk for over 3 months. And that's what you get, my friends, my students, that's what you get for being a weekend warrior, okay? Even if you're 21 years old, stretch, warm up. Don't play too hard. If you haven't played soccer or basketball or whatever in a long time, this is what happens to people all the time. People like me used to play sports all the time, and then they get older, and even if they don't get older, you just stop playing for a while, and then you jump back in, and your body isn't ready to handle it. So these weekend warriors, of which I am one, we have to calm down and make sure we prepare properly for running and stretching and doing sports. Otherwise, you end up with some kind of injury that kind of injury isn't really for. I mean, they do say amateurs do it a lot because of what I just said, but professionals are much more likely to endure an injury like that. It seemed like a pretty freak accident, but looking back on it, it was my fault. I played, a whole week in a row. My body was exhausted, and I pushed it too far, and that's what happened. So listen to your body, know your body, take care of yourself. Just because you're young doesn't mean you're invincible. Don't find out the hard way. There's my speech. So obviously medicine has its advantages. We all use medicine, but there's things behind that. Like, why do you need medicine for certain things? Probably there's underlying problems, right? Maybe you're not eating properly, or maybe you're allergic to something, or maybe you need to eat differently, or maybe you need some exercise, or maybe your stomach is very sensitive, It's not an infection or a disease. It's just the condition of your body. So, therapy and, in terms of stress, you can get medicine for stress. You can get sleeping pills to fall asleep, but what happens is you end up relying on those things. And then if you don't have them, you can't sleep. It's much better to use some sort of therapy, like cognitive therapy, right? You're smart, use your brain, use your willpower and discipline. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy to quit smoking. It's not easy to control how much you drink. It's not easy to eat healthy food regularly, but that's the easiest way to avoid going to the doctor and paying for medicine, getting treatment, and feeling sick all the time. I'm always talking about teeth with my wife. There's a big debate about teeth too, like how many times should you brush your teeth and when should you brush them and how effective is it? In my experience, I'm pretty lazy about brushing my teeth. I know some Korean students carry their toothbrush in their bag everywhere. I brush my teeth. The most important thing is you brush your teeth at night, so you don't have a bunch of junk sitting on your teeth overnight, okay? It's fine to brush your teeth in the morning before breakfast, freshen up your breath and everything. You gotta wait 15 minutes before you eat your breakfast or your breakfast tastes terrible. You can't drink orange juice after brushing your teeth. That tastes awful. But normally often, to be honest, I know everybody doesn't like to hear this, but I'm often forget to brush my teeth in the morning until I go out the door. Like right before I go out the door, I quickly brush my teeth because I don't want my breath to stink and I don't want my students to be offended. But at night, I brush my teeth properly every night before bed because I don't want stuff sitting on my teeth. I've never had a cavity. My family all have strong teeth though. So is it because I only need to brush my teeth at night, or is it because I have good teeth? And when I was young, my mother never let me eat sugar and candy and chocolate bars. Korean kids, I know because I have to, they eat candy every day. I never did. My son has 3 cavities and he's only 8 years old. I have 0 and I'm 41. So here, are we talking about genetics here or are we talking about environment? I think the fact that all Korean kids are eating sweets all the time is the major factor. People always make jokes about British people's teeth. I don't think it's because British people have genetically inferior teeth. It's because they love. They're not overweight really, so they manage it, they balance it. But a lot of them have some pretty scary looking teeth, and that's because maybe they don't brush their teeth enough. But the bigger factor is they're addicted to sugar. I mean, the British Empire brought loads and loads of sugar, and they're the original candy factory. The Americans started doing it too, but Cadbury, for example, and Willy Wonka and all those stories about sweets and candy and lollipops and stuff, those stories go back hundreds of years because they put sugar cubes in their tea and all that kind of stuff, all those white sugar cubes. That's all British stuff. So that amount of sugar passing over your teeth all the time is going to take its toll. If you drink Coca-Cola all the time, it's gonna damage your teeth. There's acid and sugar going on your teeth all the time. If you drink coffee all the time, it's gonna stain your teeth. If you smoke, it's gonna turn them yellow, etc., etc. So I don't have to remind you about these particular things, but you can handle them as you wish. Now, in terms of mental health, psychology was my minor, and that was a long time ago. And having a minor in something doesn't mean you're an expert by any means. But I took my classes. I took abnormal psychology and developmental psychology and personality and other interesting classes. Psychology statistics was not an interesting class. I don't recommend taking that class. I didn't enjoy that. But the cognition was a really good class. They taught you how the brain works and how, stimulus and there was also a great class called sensory processes, which is how you perceive the world through your senses, through your your sense of touch and your eyes and how your brain interacts with your body and the sensory organs and the world. It's great stuff. But just for our sake, for our class, two classes, the abnormal class and the developmental class, are particularly relevant. As you grow up, your brain becomes more stiffened and more rigid. Your brain is very plastic, and by plastic I don't mean plastic like a plastic marker or a plastic toy, not the material, but the quality of plasticity, which means flexibility, and it can change shape and adapt. That's the original meaning of plastic. Is it's not hard. It can bend without breaking. Your brain is very bendable and adaptable when you're young. As you get older, it's less so. So if you have these patterns, and they're bad patterns of behavior and they're high stress, your brain is sort of has adapted to that situation. So it takes quite an effort to reprogram you. The older you get, the harder it is, So this is what cognition means. Developmentally, the earlier you sort of condition and provide the right environment and encourage the right behaviors in a person, the more likely they are to have a more healthy, stable mental, have a more stable mental state when they become an adult. So it's something to consider as you get older, the impact that you have on children and how they develop their own patterns based on what they see and what they learn and what they taught, and the reactions from people. Human beings are very smart. Of course, there's all kinds of different mental illnesses. Some of them are sort of unavoidable. They come when you're born with them. There's syndromes that people are born with, and there's more ambiguous ones that seem to be more related to like brain function, but you wouldn't call it like a genetic defect necessarily. It's just a type of person who, in the way that they interact or the way that they behave, they can't function normally in society. That's really what the DSM-5 TR is, the current psychiatrist's Bible. It's not a Bible. I shouldn't call it a Bible. It's just really big. That's why I say it's a Bible, but it's a huge resource for the American Psychiatric Society, and that it lists all the disorders, all the psychological disorders that exist, that they've discovered and categorized. So if you go through that thing, I didn't go through it all, but we read a bunch of it in my class, and I had a very exceptional professor who was very experienced. He was on the Board of Health for Ontario, for the entire healthcare program for my region. So he was an advisor, and he was very, very knowledgeable. And he said, the DSM-5, it was 4 at the time, it categorizes people into certain types. And, people can have one mental illness, or they can have two, or they can be on the border. It's very blurry between, like, there's categories and subcategories, and there's schizophrenia, and there's catatonic schizophrenia, and then there's disorganized schizophrenia. There's multiple types of them. I don't even think they call it schizophrenia anymore, because that was an old-fashioned sort of German term. I think they updated it. But anyway, you have obsessive compulsive disorder, and then you have neuroticism. And what are those things? Obsessive compulsive disorder is you keep doing the same thing, and being a neurotic disorder is being unable to handle disorder or things that are outside of what you expect them to be. So you have a certain expectation of neatness or order or arrangement, and you have to have it that way. And if it's not that way, you can't handle it. That would be a neurotic type person, right? Some of these words are old and they've fallen out of fashion. So I'm using maybe some old terms, and they might be more relevant to personality. But what he said also, and I think this was a very important thing for him to say to a group of university students who are 20, 22 years old or whatever, is that if you look at these disorders, you'll probably say, oh, I have a little bit of that, and I have a little bit of this. I'm a little bit ADHD. I'm a little bit OCD. I'm a little bit hyperactive. I'm a little bit bipolar. I'm moody. I said this in my class as a joke, and some students laughed, and some students are like, oh, that's sad. It was a joke. It was a joke. I said it in a class last week that I've always been up and down, like happy, sad, happy, sad, happy, sad. Is that a mood disorder? Am I bipolar? No. Because my moodiness might annoy people or make me unable to be fun at a party if I'm in a bad mood, but it doesn't impair my function in daily life. That's the definition of an abnormal disorder, is that human beings have all of these qualities in smaller amounts. But when somebody has an extreme example of some of these behaviors or some of these mental states or some of these, ways of socially interacting, we throw around the words really easily, too easily. I always mention Donald Trump sooner or later, but psychologists have attempted to pin down like his personality as exhibiting certain signs of, for example, he's a sociopath. The signs, but you can't diagnose somebody from watching them on TV, I don't think. I think you need to have some measurements, maybe even like biological measurements, and then counsel them and interview them and find out, But he seems to be, he never apologizes for anything. He lies. The last speech he made, he lied. 90% of what he said was untrue. That's what we call a compulsive liar. He's obviously in love with himself, so you can say he has narcissism. And he doesn't seem to have any empathy for any other people. He seems to just use people and do what he wants, irregardless of other people's feelings, which you might label as a sociopath. Whether he is any or all of those things, I have no idea. But that's the kind of thing you shouldn't do. You shouldn't do. If you're afraid of crowds, that doesn't mean you have agoraphobia, okay? If you're shy when you do a presentation, that doesn't mean you're a severe introvert. So, as I said, mind control, a lot of the ways that you can overcome these things is just by talking to other people. The other day, I've been very stressed out for the last couple of years, trying to do my PhD and trying to do my work at the same time. I've ended up yelling unnecessarily at people in my family, and something that I don't want to do and I don't think I should do. And I felt really guilty about it until I talked to a whole bunch of other dads, and they were like, oh yeah, I do that too. I don't want to do it either. How can we fix this problem? We have to calm down. We have to find outlets for stress. I need to play some sports, and I need to, express my stress and calm down and be patient and understanding and work my problems another way. It's easier to say that than do that, but it is helpful when 25 other people say that they have the same issue and that everybody makes their suggestions, and some people say, yeah, I was doing that before, but now I don't, and this is what I did. So use your friends. Don't suffer alone. If you have some mental issue, use your support. Don't be afraid to talk. We do this in Canada. Some corporations recently have promoted, depression in particular in Canada is something people don't talk about. They just kind of keep it inside. And that's what depressed people do. They don't want to talk to people, but it's much more productive to be able to express your depression, how you feel. If you're able to do that to somebody that you trust, like that can be a one step, out of that situation. I've been depressed myself at the end of high school, and it's not like being sad. It's like a hopelessness, and nothing gives you joy. Nothing seems to be interesting. You don't have any desire to do anything, and you just rather just sort of disappear or fade away or be left alone or just, you have lack of energy, and you have lack of interest in things, and you don't seem to be able to, even though somebody says, come on, Jeremy, come out and play soccer, or like, let's go to the shopping mall, or don't you want to like, shouldn't you get up and go to school? And you just don't. Just want everybody, to go away, and just for you to like sort of get swallowed up by that empty feeling, I guess. It's hard to explain. And I just, in my case, step by step, I got my old personality back and started doing things that I liked step by step, slowly. And it took probably about 6 months for me to get back to an energetic, active, friendly, motivated person. And that was a hard thing. Maybe you've experienced something like that, or you have a friend who's experienced something like that. And it's really support from other people and understanding and patience for somebody like that is important. You can't really just jerk them out of their, lethargy. That doesn't work. Okay, now all these things here I think you're familiar with. I've kind of covered them. We do have to think about something about health. This is another perspective. I'm only talking about myself here. Maybe I'm the narcissist, but the book is emphasizing, personal stuff. But you can talk about the health of the earth, right? The environment has a health issue too. My daughter, who is in kindergarten, keeps saying to me, the earth is sick. And I'm like, I know it is. I know it is. Like, we got to help it. You don't throw garbage on the ground. Don't use too much electricity. Don't use one use. Everybody walks around here with plastic everything and throws it all in the garbage. And, it breaks my heart a little bit more. I don't know how many times my heart can be broken by these small things, but when, there's just, in the forest, there's just random pieces of garbage everywhere. I just wonder what these people are thinking, It would be the same thing if your skin was covered in dirt all the time and people just threw junk on your skin all the time. The earth is covered in garbage all the time. So I would say that that's something you could talk about as well. We have this anthropocentric point of view, which is human-centered existence, where we're at the top. Even people who don't believe in God now, God was at the top before, and you all know about the chain of being from British and American culture class, but we're not talking about a human hierarchy. We're talking about a hierarchy of existence here, of everything. If you don't believe in God and you're not religious, then you're at the top. And all other things, rocks, trees, objects, artificial or natural, animals, large and small, ocean, air or land, they're all beneath us. This is a very old-fashioned idea, right? This is going back to like Genesis in the Bible and Aristotle in ancient Greece. I think it's time that we had a different perspective, that this is more of like a circle and that we are all part of it. We are certainly the most developed, intelligent, civilized, advanced, technologically innovative, dangerous animals. But we are animals. And until we turn ourselves into supercomputers, we are still animals. The earth we are part of the earth. We are like little bacteria crawling around on the earth, right? We have bacteria. We have little organisms there's some crawling in my beard. Don't think about that too carefully. But there's some in my mouth. There's some in my stomach. And if they were not there, I would die, right? So the earth needs its organisms to keep itself a living thing. But it certainly doesn't want a whole bunch of diseased and infectious creatures all over its body, making it itchy everywhere. And eventually, it's probably, we're headed towards a climate catastrophe, which would be, just a human being infected by too many diseases and then, dying, collapsing out of exhaustion, or going to the hospital at least until it recovered. Because I'm sure after we destroy ourselves, the earth will regenerate and then it'll come back from the hospital in better condition. But I think the point is there, that if you want to talk about the health of the earth, and you want to talk about ecosystems and how that affects our health, you want to talk about your personal health or human beings, that's fine. Don't go off too far into the pollution thing. Make sure you relate it to health, okay? If you talk about any of these things, relate it specifically to mental or physical health or health of society or something like that. It's still got to be based on health. Okay, so that's chapter 7. Chapter 8, I think, requires less explanation. It's less complicated, and for some people, this will be a fun one. If you don't like science fiction, I'm sorry. The class, the chapter and the class is about space travel, but I think that's even narrower. Sometimes I have people say, well, let's say you can go to a really unusual place, explore something really far away. But this time, the topic is going to be science fiction. So you can talk about anything. It's got to be some sort of technology that, if it exists, it's a prototype, right? So it's not a day-to-day thing. So you can't talk about smartphones. You can't talk about the internet. You can't talk about tablets. Okay? It's not your favorite technology. It's something that we're going to do, that human beings might do. Fly to Mars, right? Build a city in a space station in space. Build an underwater city. It doesn't have to be space. You can talk about making those. I've heard about people talking about underwater cities. I read a cool article a while ago that was talking about a high-speed train from Beijing to Los Angeles. You imagine that? You could take a train from China over the top of Russia and Alaska, down through Canada, down to Alaska, rather than taking an airplane, and it would be faster. It would be faster. You're talking about like a mag rail that's going like 600 kilometers an hour and down a tube. And you just get in Beijing and then you zip down the tube, and 6 or 7 hours, it's smooth, no turbulence, you're not gonna crash, right? There's no bad weather, you just fly through that tube and it goes thousands of kilometers. In about 6 hours, you're there. And you just hop out, take a nap, read a book, hop out, and you're in California. You know, do your business for the weekend, jump in the tube, fly, go right back to Asia. That would be awesome. That's something, I mean, this high-speed tube connection, who knows if it'll ever happen. I hope so. But I was just reading, you know, some people are futurists, and that's what they write about. The future in science fiction sometimes looks really bad. That's called a dystopian society. A utopian society is an ideal one, but science fiction writers generally like to talk about how the future is going to be a disaster, a catastrophe, and human beings are going to get killed by robots, or they're going to kill themselves, or there's going to be a nuclear holocaust, or, well, now, I mean, there could be a natural disaster, an asteroid. There are hundreds of these things. Yeah, exploration of outer space, exploration of the earth, new technologies, you know, fusion power, whatever you think is interesting, but it's got to be something that's developing or will be developed, or it's just science fiction. It's not, nobody's actually developing yet. It's just an idea about something that might happen in the future. If you want to talk about black holes, go for it. Okay? Anything that fits in the realm of space, science fiction, or future technology is fair game. Okay? I have a short story. It's a very short story, and I normally don't get students in conversation class to read, but this is one of my favorite short stories, not because it's 5 pages long, but because it's really, we're gonna say, it causes you to reflect carefully about the nature of technology and the progress of human beings, and what our lives are like and what they may become and what's important to you. The title of I'll make copies for everybody, and we probably won't be able to read it in class, but it'll take you 10 minutes to read. So I will send it with you on Monday so that you can read it, and you can consider it when you're thinking about this topic, because it's a classic short story. It was written in 1950, I think. 1950, just at the beginning of the Korean War, just after World War II. And the writer's name is Ray Bradbury, and he wrote about the year 2026. And it's always fascinating when you have a science fiction writer who writes about something in the future and they give a date, and he's talking about what the world's going to be like in 4 years from now. And I hope he's not right. In the same way that George Orwell wrote about 1984, and 1984 came around and his dystopian vision didn't come true. It would be, this is a pretty stark, dark vision of what the consequences of our path, our human development path might be. So I'll share that short story with you on Monday. And I'm going to do one more lecture like this, but this is the first one. The next one will cover chapter 9 and 10. Okay? Thank you for listening, and see you on Monday.